You're my assistant, okay? You're supposed to back me up and go get me juice boxes when I tell you. Now go get me a juice box.
You know who you're talking to?
I'm talking to the juice box guy.
You're crazy.
I'm not crazy. I'm just thirsty.
Why don't you go to hell?
No, you go to hell. While you're there, why don't you grab me a juice box?
I'm no juice box boy, I'll tell you that.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm not.
Hello and welcome to the Cinebums podcast. We are back with John and Luke. If you are a follower of the Misfit Pond channel, and you have found your way to us from our last episode with Carlos and Jake, then welcome. I hope that you are liking what you have found, and you don't take us on necessarily just our last grown-ups episode, which will have been out by the time this episode is out. Because it's kind of funny, like.
That's a very different episode than what Jake and Carlos
exactly,
did. Yeah.
If you juxtapose those two episodes together, they don't fit together at all.
No, definitely not.
But each hold their own type of value. One definitely more than the other. But one is fun. I don't know, Brendon, have you followed did you watch the episode with the Misfit Pond?
I have not been on the Misfit Pond one, but Jake told me about it, and he told me that was a good one that I should definitely watch. So I will have to be with Jake recommendation.
It's better than the usual ones. Yeah.
Make sure to watch this one so you don't have to watch the next one.
If it has Jake's recommendation, I always usually take it. So I'm on it.
But I am currently editing, Brendon, an episode where John and I talk about grown-ups. Perfect, right? Which I know we've watched together as
many
as
times.
a kid.
Many.
Yeah. So maybe you'll get a kick out of it. I don't know if that one's necessarily for everyone because it's more for people who are a little too obsessed with grown-ups.
Sure, I'll be excited for it. I know that was a film we always watched growing up. So, and it would just be a random watch too at any occasion. So I'm sure I'll get a kick out of most of it.
Right.
For sure.
And well, I guess today we are ending a comedy summer trilogy, which is why Kicking and Screaming is one of them. And it's kind of it's a back to school episode, kind of like similar to what we did, or like end of summer, back to school. Like it's the same thing because it's August 23rd today. So
yeah,
like kind of you're back for a similar theme, it's all revolves around like summer, back to school, that sort of thing. I always get the vibes of watching this movie. I always get reminisced on how I spent the day summers playing soccer in the suburbs and whatnot, and that's what this movie's about.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. Yeah, this is back when you're getting back into soccer, or you might remember our JV soccer days. We didn't do it the same year, but yeah, that's
yeah, right. As Jim Halpert would say, I was on the blue team. That's like what everyone was like. Everyone was on that colored team, like, and it always felt like it was somewhat different. Like I'm on the orange team now with these kids. You always like change your teammates and stuff like that.
Well, yeah, I'm excited to get into Kicking and Screaming. It's definitely one that I watched a ton growing up, and it's nice when I remember going to college too, and some of my first early friends I met there would reference it or would catch my reference to it. And it's always like, it's one of those movies that's not as like mainstream, I guess, as Step Brothers, or as massive.
Yeah.
So it's like when I hear someone referencing it, I'm like, oh, hey, yeah, we're on the same page here. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a Lost in the 2000s one, but like
Definitely.
Our generation, we all saw it, so.
Mm-hmm.
Right, yeah, and it's one of the like probably not as popular Will Ferrell movies. Like if you want to list some of the best Will Ferrell ones, people don't always say, hey, Kicking and Screaming was like really on the top. But yeah. When people bring it up and want to watch it, I'm always game for Kicking and Screaming at all times. So when I heard this Pod was on it, I was like, I can definitely hop on this.
Right, and Brendon and we actually watched it on my birthday.
Yes, we did.
Which is kind of funny. It's like a random birthday movie. It's not like super satisfying of a movie. It's
Right.
very imperfect, so it's a weird one to like watch on your birthday. But
It-
like, I wanted that nostalgia. I wanted that,
It
I
was
don't know.
a
I
good
own it,
vibe.
too.
It was a good vibe for the day like that we had been having. We needed a movie to just like pretty much melt into and just have a good time laughing at. And I actually just watched it like basically
I
ended
know.
20
I
minutes
saw
ago.
that you logged it.
I
I
just
saw you
watched it
logged
like
it.
20 minutes
I
ago.
wish
'cause
I wish I had done the same thing, but I
as soon
was
as I got
really
out of
deep
work,
into
I was
editing.
just like, you know what? I was like, sounds good to watch
Yeah,
Kicking and Screaming. I was like, I couldn't remember the last time I
right.
watched it until I looked at my diary on Letterboxd and I was like, oh, Luke's birthday. We watched that on there. So I was like, okay. I was like, I'll rewatch it twice. So I can't remember the last time I've watched Kicking and Screaming twice in the span of a few months. So it's definitely gonna come back into my watch list
Right.
again.
So you popped off work and then just
I did.
popped on the film pretty much.
To be honest,
There you go.
a very good after work movie. I don't have to.
I bet. Yeah.
don't-
Yeah.
just get to relax and watch Will Ferrell drink coffee for the whole movie basically. So it was a good.
Right. Yeah. I
good
was
The
half
like
calf.
debating drinking. Yeah, half calf. Yeah. I was debating drinking coffee for this episode. In like the theme of it all and stuff, but I drink enough coffee. I actually really don't need any at night right now, but it's definitely would have been, it's like if you're watching if you want to do an episode on Leaving Las Vegas with Nick Cage, you drink like whiskey or
right,
something like
right.
that.
Or when you watch Days
Um,
to Confuse, you drink IPA or something like that. Something a hazy IPA.
I mean, I don't think they're I don't think they're drinking IPAs in Days Confused.
Probably
but
not.
Yeah,
No.
like it definitely has that IPA feel for sure. For a movie, yeah. Like I know we've drank some heavy IPAs while watching
most definitely.
Days to Confuse.
We'd pull out the hazy IPAs or the sours
But
for that.
also, Brendan, like the movie we started, yeah, the heavy
heavy-
sours, the heavier the
Heavy
better.
sours. Yep.
But like the episode we started with, like you connect with too, with this comedy trilogy that John and I have taken, where we talked about Family Guy, Star Wars.
Yes.
And we grew up watching those together too.
Always.
If you haven't listened to that episode yet, I feel like we're just promoting our fucking episodes. to
I
Brendan.
have listened. I have
Like-
listened to the Blue Harvest episodes. So
Oh, you did? Good.
I was
good.
there
All
for
right, good,
those.
good.
So
I
I've been-
figured that would
been
be
following
one you'd
those.
like when, yeah, you'd relate to that one
When
because we
I-
watched those all the time.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
when we grew up.
Blue
The
Harvest,
bit-
Family Guy,
yeah.
Star Wars was huge growing up. That was a laughable thing, especially like because especially since they were longer Family Guy episodes / movies that we
Right,
could just pop
right.
on and wouldn't have to watch all of Star Wars, but we could watch pretty much a sitcom of it for 3 hours and have a good time. So yeah, those were always fun to go through. So when I saw those episodes, I was like, Cinebums does
for
Blue
sure.
Harvest.
I guess the first thing on the agenda, like if you're ready, Brendan. I don't think John.
I'm ready.
I don't think John and I we bought any Criterions in June.
Not
did
this
we?
time around. No.
Well, on the other hand, we
gosh.
have Brendan here.
I am the complete opposite of buying none, basically.
Who, honestly, like, it's good to have this documented, I think, because it's got to be one of the top like amounts for a single person on that last sale, maybe on the planet. It might be. Is it? Like we
don't
won't
know if
get
we have the
exact.
statistics for it, so we gotta.
Brendan is in the 30s range.
Oh,
Yeah. We don't have
well,
all. Of
the exact amount I bought during the sale this time was 41
Wow.
Criterion
Okay,
films for
even
this
more
one.
than I.
A few came in
Wow.
collections, like this Godzilla one that I have behind me that came with 15 films.
So you're like, yeah.
I counted.
Oh, so you're counting the.
I counted the
15 in
Godzilla one and that
Gotcha.
one.
Gotcha.
And then we have the Bruce Lee collection, which was I
Okay.
think like 3 or 4. So, but still about 30, like 30 or so without the collections. So it was a good amount. It was
Without
a
the
good amount when I
collections
went. So
multiplied together.
I was
yeah.
I was at Barnes and Noble probably almost every day for at least every week. Just going in there buying them 1 or 2 at a time. So
Oh wow, so it wasn't all at once.
It
You
wasn't all at
staggered
once.
it. Wow.
No, I kept going in and I kept telling myself I'm just gonna get a couple, just 3, just 4. I
Right.
won't do a ton. And then next week I'd be like, man, they're coming out with more. There's a few new ones I want to grab. And I can't lie, the selection on my Barnes was pretty good. So that didn't help my case either very much. But it was a good haul this time around. I know Luke and Jake enjoyed my time sending them pictures of my haul continuously from day to day. So
Yeah, I mean, I've never heard of anyone in one sale like buying that many. So like I just thought it was worth noting. We already talked about Godzilla and Bruce Lee. What are like some of, we don't have to go through all of them,
yeah,
but
we
like,
won't go through
what are
them
some
all.
of the highlights, like maybe some of your favorites that
Oh
you
yeah.
picked up?
No, I'm pretty excited about a few of them. I mean, obviously, I was super excited about the Godzilla and the Bruce Lee collections because those were really
Yeah.
big. But I won't talk on those too much. The Bruce Lee one and Godzilla ones were definitely ones I would only buy when they were half off, full price.
Yeah,
Pretty
right.
large,
Because
pretty
Yeah.
usually
large.
Godzilla's like
It
100 to
it was
200.
over $200 before that.
Yeah, that's
So
ridiculous.
half off. I was
That's
like, oh,
ridiculous.
I mean, the book is cool and everything. It looks nice, but it's definitely over $200. But no, I continued to go in there every day trying to find highlights. I was pretty excited to get Raging Bull. I think Raging Bull was one of the
Oh,
really excited
that's
ones
cool. That's a good one.
because that was a new one that they just released during the sale. It was like
Yeah.
just
Oh,
toward
yeah.
the
I knew of
end.
that. I knew of that.
And I was like, oh, is it gonna make it just in time for the sale? It's got to get to the Barnes like the day that the sale kind of gets going. I was like, perfect. I think one of the other ones that they came out with was Drive My Car came out during the sale, so I picked that
Oh,
up
okay.
Oh, I
Yeah.
for
forgot that one
Criterion.
already came out.
Yeah.
It just came out toward the end of the sale, and there's another one I was wondering if it would. I think Seven Samurai was one that I was really looking for and excited about because I hadn't actually seen that one, and so that's going to be a
Right.
new watch for me. So that one will be pretty exciting. Let's see, was there one that I was super excited about? The Citizen Kane one was my favorite to open.
Is that one new too? Like
That
restored again?
one I
Like Raging?
think was new. I think the
I think it
4K
was.
version of it was definitely
I'm pretty
new.
sure that they've been promoting that like
That
almost
one was
all
big.
year
Yeah.
about
But
that.
opening up that one was probably my favorite to open up just because they did a really cool design inside. As you open it up, it spells the word Kane as you open up 4 corners. So it was really cool to open up that packaging. Sometimes I have fun with the Criterions when you open them up and there's
Oh
like
yeah.
cool things in there. They
Oh
got
yeah, you
posters
see
and
what
stuff.
opens up. It's like
So,
almost a whole
oh yeah,
booklet or
right.
like, yeah, there's some cool ones like
And
that.
then I think the last one that like really was exciting was Vampire, which was I think that's a 40s movie, German horror, way back. Actually, it's probably 30s,
Yeah, Vampire with
1932.
a Y, yeah,
Yeah,
right.
with a Y. And that one
Mhm.
was cool because when
Nice.
I bought it, it came in a larger box and it actually has a book of the entire screenplay of Vampire in there. So
Oh.
that was really cool to buy. So yeah, and I ran through a bunch of them. So, but all in all, it was over 45 different purchases and whatnot. So
Wow.
made sure to get my fill for the collection. I know when talking to Luke and Jake, they asked me if I was going to get any more later, and I was like, no, I can't. I was like, I really I've already almost made my way through the Bruce Lee collection, and then the Godzilla collection will be next. So.
Yeah, you've got you're set for a winter in Michigan with all
That for
these
a little while,
Criterions.
man. Well, also the thing that factored in was, as I was telling Luke and John, you probably don't know, but me and my girlfriend got sick, for a little bit, so we were down for the count. We weren't feeling well, and so getting to these movies like was just something to do on a daily basis, basically.
Yeah, nice.
Was get a new Criterion and watch it that same day, basically. So kind of gave me some stuff to do outside of the house. But hey, it's gonna look even better on my wall once I'm complete and putting it up. So it's gonna look good. Got to make more
Right,
room.
yeah, you
though,
have a display in the works.
I do have a display. Yes.
Too.
It's ongoing as of right now, but the display still has the original 16 that was on the Cinebums Instagram page. Shout out to your guys' Instagram page. But
Oh
yes,
yeah.
original photo was there, but now that 16 will now be added onto here. So I think I got to figure out how to fit 57 up there now. So we'll have to see. So We'll have to see
Yeah,
how that
wow.
goes.
So how
But-
many of these were like blind buys? Like you haven't seen them?
Actually, you know what, John? A good amount, to be honest. Which I think I surprised myself just because a few of them. Yeah, there were definitely a few blind buys. Fast Times at Ridgemount High was a blind buy. I've heard a lot of good stuff about that. So, and it sounds
Just
like
saw it
another one of
recently.
those.
First
Did
time.
you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go. I'm
John
not as
also has
behind as I
heard some
thought.
good things about it.
Yeah, let's reference another
Let's-
podcast episode we have where I talked about it.
Perfect. No, that one, God, there were a few. Oh, Repo Man was one that I hadn't seen. That was a Criterion buy for me. And then I think one of the ones that I bought that I hadn't seen Blue Velvet was one that I bought that I had not seen. And when I watched it, I actually became such a big fan that I ended up buying Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me as well because I like the director so much from Blue Velvet. So yeah, a few at least about 40%
Yeah.
of them is probably
I mean,
blind
you've
buys,
covered with
so,
this purchase, like there's just so many bases of like
yeah.
cinema that you've gotten to from it.
There's a lot for sure. I mean, I even got back a lot of black and white issues as well, like double indemnity.
Indemnity.
Yeah, double indemnity was like an amazing purchase that I loved. I had never seen that movie. And then The Incredible Shrinking Man, because I'm a big fan of those drive-in horror movies. So that'll be a really cool one to watch.
Oh, nice.
But that was a
nice.
blind buy as well. So I'm excited. I'm
Nice.
excited.
I mean, I think a lot of people might be like, man, this guy's out of his mind. Like, he bought 40 Criterions, but I'm like, I don't know. I think it's really cool and admirable when people who are like, when like someone's just naturally like that into movies, you know. John and I used to do the podcast, and I would see that John is like watching as many movies as I am, and I'm like, well, John's not even like trying to work in movies. John's just like doing it on his own, doing that on his own time. I mean, I always love that. Like that always makes me happy. Like that you're just so into movies, like that's what you're like down to spend your money on. Your
Hey, I love
hard-earned
it,
money,
man.
I might add.
Hey, thanks, man. It's a good thing, you know. I love the movies. I love watching them, and
Yeah.
I don't really have a certain kind of movies or cinema that like really is like I spend 100% of my time
There's
on.
no
I like to
boundaries.
change it up, man. Keep me
Boundaryless.
guessing, man. So that's what
Yeah,
this
no, because
Criterion
you really
collection
bought like
did.
everything.
did.
You bought Lynch. You
I
bought
did.
Bruce
Bought
Lee.
Lynch.
You
Oh,
bought Old
God.
Noir.
Bought
It's
Safdie Brothers.
almost
I
hard.
bought-
Yeah.
all-
You bought Safdie Brothers.
I bought
Which one?
uncut gems from them. So uncut gems
We
from
didn't
them.
mention that yet.
Yeah, no, that was there's
I mean,
plenty
there's
that
so
I
many
didn't
we
mention.
did.
So
It's a melting pot of Criterions.
Right,
Wow.
right. It's
went Del
insane.
Toro. I went.
I
all
know
over
we're
the
talking
place.
about how the purchase might rank on the world, but I do know for sure that I can say without a doubt that probably in your town at that
Oh.
Barnes and Noble, you probably are the biggest like
I think-
cinephile in the
yes,
town with that purchase.
I believe the cashiers got very tired of me continually come in day after day racking up the Criterion purchases. I was shocked they didn't bring down the 50% after my first or second purchase because I took so many. So
Right.
they didn't have very many
right.
left by the time I was leaving, at least not very good ones. So but the one good thing I will say is because I live in Midland, and shout out Midland, Michigan, great place, but not a lot of people into the Criterion, so the amount that they
No,
have
I would
picked over very
assume
Yeah.
assume not.
because even talking with Jake, I was asking him if he ended up picking up The Worst Person in the World. That was one that he really wanted on his list, and he told me he couldn't
Right.
find it at the Barnes for 50% off, but they had 3 at mine, so I was able to buy it. So I think he might have gotten it since I talked to him last, but that was when I was like, you know, in Midland, you don't really have a problem picking up picking these up, so no one's fighting you for it here. So it's like,
It's so uncultured that I have all the criteria still.
it's perfect, man. Hey, you know, for somebody like me that likes to pick these up and show them off, like I almost love them as an art
Yeah.
style. It's cool to have the covers that are different. It's cool to have some of those
yeah.
special
Yeah.
features.
Oh,
in
for
there.
sure.
They
Yeah,
look
they're
great,
so
you know?
great to display.
I've even displayed this Godzilla like one that I have that's in my room that isn't even out on the wall. It's like up on a mantle in my room now. So it's like it's just a cool art thing. I like it. So.
Yeah.
I mean, feel free when you finish that display, like send it to
Oh.
us and we'll like post it on our page because it's probably
definitely.
it's probably a sight to behold what it's
gonna-
gonna be. You know,
It's gonna look good for sure. So yeah, hoping to make it look pretty decent now that I have so many. I gotta be creative. So, but yeah, it was a good purchase for sure. So
Right.
luckily,
I real quick, do you want to like we've never done this since you've been on the show a couple times, but
yeah.
Brendon's an avid comic collector.
I am.
Oh,
Do you want to
am.
plug your comic collecting like business
Sure,
and
sure.
page and stuff, and maybe briefly talk about some of the
Yes.
books you've accumulated, how that's been
Yeah.
going for you?
I definitely can. It's been going good, man. I appreciate you bringing it up. It's been a good time. Obviously, since I had all the Criterion purchases, I slowed down it for July a little bit, so had to spend the money on the
Yeah.
Criterions.
Right.
But yeah, avid comic collector. Love collecting the comics. It's a good time. Yeah, I got an Instagram page, Bet on Comics. Feel free to follow it. I just post books that I get. My most recent one, I think, was the Fantastic Four #1. So that was a huge book for me. That was my, what we call it in the business, a grail. It was something basically no one has. I think only about 1,000 other people besides myself even have one, and they even exist. So definitely something that was
wow.
really big. So yeah, it's a big business, but yeah, I love it. So I sell them, I buy them, and I trade them. So I actually got the Fantastic Four book by trading, not even buying. So I had to trade a good amount of my books for that one, but it was definitely worth it. So good to trade with people. But yeah, I have a good time collecting it. So, and not only Criterion's comics too. So
Yeah, he doesn't just collect Criterions, guys.
Yeah.
He collects,
just to get that clear, not just Criterion's.
he
No,
collects
but
it all. Eventually, you're gonna be collecting wine.
I'm
too.
hoping so. I got my wine rack finally. It's out in the living room. So I got to start filling it up with some wines. So get that fresh wine in here.
Yeah, I guess we can get to maybe movies we've been watching lately since we
Yeah.
before we get to kicking and screaming.
Yeah.
You could start again, Brendon. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. I'll start. I'm as Luke knows, and I think John knows now since I've been on the pod. Like I'm more of a recent movie guy, so I go to a lot of the newer movies that come out. I'm basically in the theater a lot. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, I just saw Bodies twice. I saw it twice in the theater both times. So I don't know. Did John and Luke, did either of you see that one, or is that one still on
No,
the
I've
Not
been
yet.
meaning to get there.
Okay.
Been
Yeah.
meaning to get there.
A good one.
Definitely hope to.
I would definitely recommend it. I had a really good time. So much fun that I went back for a second time. So I saw it the first time on my own, and then my girlfriend came and saw the second one with me. So we had just as good a time. But yeah, definitely that cool, like very relaxed, but yet kind of psychological vibe, but just kind of partiers and basically the vibe Pete Davidson gives off, whatever that is. So
Yeah, it's like a great idea. I feel like just to build a horror movie around Pete Davidson. I can just totally see that working in a way.
it is. It's very comical, but yet it's like they kind of just make the horror comical, and it's definitely a zillennial movie for sure. It's pretty much based around our generation. So, but yeah, that was a good one for me that I watched recently. And then I think I watched, what did I watch just the other? My August has been really light on Letterboxd because I just rewatched all of Game of Thrones. So I just through August I rewatched all 8 seasons of Game of Thrones. So that took up.
That takes up time. Yeah.
Took up time. It was definitely an expedition to get it finished. But I wanted to get it done in time for House of the Dragon that came out on Sunday. So tried to get that all
Right.
finished up. At which that was great. I mean, rewatching that show was always a good time. So I had a great time rewatching that. I don't think my girlfriend loved it as much as I did, but that's okay. So.
That's too bad because it's a lot of stuff.
It's so great. Yeah, it's so much. And then I think the only other one
if you're gonna invest that much time in it, it's hard to be like, I wasn't really awed by that, you know.
Yeah, right. The convincing to put it on once in a while was tough, but it definitely was good. I think she liked it at the end, but she won't admit it. And then I think I watched Prey, which I think Luke, you watched.
Yeah, I watched that.
John, did you able to squeeze that one in?
Yep, I did catch that on Hulu. Yep.
Nice. I liked that one a lot. I thought it was
I
definitely
thought it was
a
good.
lot better
It
than
was a
I.
good take on it.
Yeah,
Uh,
I didn't have
they
very
kind
high
of made like,
expectations going in, so because of
oh,
some of the
me
Yeah.
last
neither.
Predator
Me
movies
neither.
that we've seen, you know.
Yeah, yeah, they kind of made like the North American wilderness a character in it, which I thought was like cool and smart, and it was just, definitely like a good thing to do with it.
No, most
I
definitely.
wish that like my one problem I was having was like I wished that like it's hard to watch a Predator movie that's not a group of like
Right.
badasses for
Yeah.
me. Like if like obviously they make the girl, she has a great journey over the film, and she ends up like, of course they end up making her a badass because she kills the Predator. But
Hmm.
like through the first two acts I was watching, I'm like, and a lot of it is this girl kind of on this adventure through nature
Mm-hmm.
for the most part. Like there's like bears, she's trying to hunt
Yes.
deer and shit like that, and she's kind of like struggling through a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was watching this, I was kind of like, what the hell, how's she gonna defeat
Right.
a predator? Like that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I just kind of, that was like my one like thing where I was like, I feel Predator movies are more at home when it revolves around a group of badasses, and it's kind of
Right.
like the badasses are kind of obnoxious, but the girl character is great. She's like very humble, and just it's like a very story about the little person, like that sort of thing. You're rooting for them and whatnot, and it's like it makes it like admirable, kind of a big feat for her and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Some of the scenes were gorgeous in it. I won't lie, like you said, because it was
Yeah,
just
Yeah.
a
they
lot
shot
of
it
just
so pretty, and it was so
mhm,
nice to see. And
like
I'll
the
never
Red Dead
forget.
Redemption map
Yes,
sort of
yes,
deal,
basically, just the such surreal like outlook
Isn't
of the
it
land.
funny? I'm like
But
comparing like real nature that they shot on like expensive
it's a
cameras. It
Red
almost
Dead
looked like that
Redemption.
video game.
That's how good it is, man. That's how
Yeah,
good
man.
RDR2 is. Yeah.
That's why it takes up like half the space in my PlayStation 4. That's
Oh, I know,
Oh,
yeah.
right. Yeah.
no, but yeah, I liked that one a lot. I thought that was a good one. I always remember the time when we saw the last Predator movie. Me, and Jake saw it in the theater, and we left being really disappointed with that one. That was a while ago, way back.
Right. You mean like the Adrian Brody one?
Yes, I think that was
When
it.
we were like
Mhm.
kids, like I actually remember liking the Adrian Brody one when we
Oh
saw it.
gosh.
Uh, at least when we saw it, I kind of look back on that fondly. But I do remember we saw it like with your parents,
Yeah.
and I remember, I remember your dad
Yes.
like after we saw it, I was like, I fucking hated it.
He
Like,
hated it. Yeah,
and you know what?
he was
I
so
never
mad,
liked
man.
any of the other Predators either. And I was like, what?
I know. I think he's
Just wasn't
grown to like
having
the
any of it.
original, but he wasn't having any of it that day. I remember having a good
Yeah,
time
I
with you
wasn't having
guys.
any
I
of
was
it.
just like, I was in the movie with my dad, just like, oh, hated the whole thing, and we just we just left the whole theater. I was like, oh, God. But yeah, that's my sour taste of Predator from my dad. So I was like, all right, maybe this one will be better.
Yeah.
So this one definitely turned out to be
I'd
a
say
lot better.
Prey is like one of the most respectable Predators to be made since the
Yeah.
original one. I think you can
Most
make
definitely.
the argument that it is the most respectable sequel since the original one, which is kind of like, I mean, the bar really is not very high.
Yeah, it was
for
pretty
any of
low
them. I
to
mean,
start.
Predator 2 takes place in LA. It's just
Yes.
ridiculous, like that it takes place in a city.
Right.
And I think they get like gangs involved in
They
Predator
do.
2. I've only seen it like one time.
Yeah, it was definitely an odd one that they went with. I was happy for this one that they went with a better director too. I think a lot of the directors they chose in the last ones were different. This one was the guy that did 10 Cloverfield Lane, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There
Dan
you go.
Trachtenberg.
So,
Yeah.
which
He's
was another
like
like
takes these like previous IPs and makes a
Yeah.
completely different
And
movie
way
out of it.
better,
They're all
honestly.
they're
Yeah.
all like solid. Yeah.
right. I liked
guess
like
the
10
two.
Cloverfield Lane. It was solid, and I was like, this is definitely a more I don't know, like more tame, but also more psychological take on it. And I was like, okay, like not exactly what I expected, but this Prey was the same way. I was like, this is an intense movie that not all Predator movies are like. They usually focus more on the Predator than they do on like building the character up. So it was cool to see the girl character get her due. But yeah, I liked Prey a lot. moving forward, I
Yeah.
think that the only other one I watched recently was not. Did either of you see Not Okay? That one was a little.
Not yet.
That one was a Hulu one
No.
that I watched too. Lots of Hulu ones. That one was basically I won't say too much because you guys won't want to watch it. It was very mid movie for me, but at the same time I like to mention it just because it was a movie that I was like at the end I was like this could definitely happen. I was like this would be something quite realistic like that
Right. I know
I
what
could
you mean. I know what you
definitely
mean.
see someone do this. So yeah, but I think that was it for my recent watches that I had
That's
done.
why I get scared by Halloween because I'm like,
That's right.
yeah, definitely someone could come kill me right now if they wanted to. I'm pretty defenseless. This is very scary. I'm gonna talk about this first movie because it like revolves around like a family vacation I had recently. So I can talk about like this is like duo movie / vacation report, you know. So
Perfect.
it's the movie Sideways, directed by Alexander Payne and starring Paul Giamatti and Thomas Hayden Church. And so it's these two guys basically kind of having one of those like single guy, like we're in a like midlife crisis, like Thomas Hayden Church is about to get married, Paul Giamatti is a not successful novelist, and they're both kind of having those like, you know, like existential midlife crisis times, but so, and they're like letting out all of that like anxiety in the Santa Barbara wine country,
Okay.
which happens to be where I just went on vacation with my family. So I watched that movie to prep for that vacation because that's kind of what I kept hearing when my mom was talking about where we were going, because I had never heard of Santa Ynez before.
Mm.
As a former Californian, John, I don't know if you've ever heard of Santa Ynez.
I've heard of it, and it's probably because I've just seen it like maybe on labels or something before.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
definitely
it's
sounds
kind of
very
like,
familiar.
I feel like maybe I've never been to San Luis Obispo,
Oh, I
but I
love
feel
San
like
Luis
maybe
Obispo.
there's similarities. Like San Luis Obispo has a wine country and stuff like that, and I think
Yep.
it's more remote, right, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that, yeah, Santa Ynez like is just kind of a wine country in SoCal, kind of just north of Santa Barbara, and it's a great escape, especially if you like live in like very busy workaholic Los Angeles, and you're just looking to get away. And like I had never been to Santa Barbara either, and so Santa Barbara was really cool. It's very like picturesque, like on the water, you know, kind of like a Riviera. There's boats everywhere. There's
Oh
like
gosh.
there's like so many, like every like, and this was the same in Santa Ynez too. Like every single place when you're walking down the road is like food, like a wine place to try wines, and then like crafts. So
Mm.
like that's all it is. You like I'd go to towns and that's all it is, and I'm like, this place is great, you know. Yeah, so I recommend going here. In the film that this place is where this takes place, Paul Giamatti is very obsessed with wine, and he's very pretentious about wine, and always talks about like there's nothing like a good Pinot, and he like looks down on other wines in comparison to Pinot because he says that you have to take the time to grow Pinot. You have to put in. It doesn't grow as easy as a cab as Pinot. You have to take care to grow the grapes just right. So learned a lot from that movie, and I took that inspiration onto this vacation as I was trying to pretend that I was appreciating Pinot as well.
Yeah, Luke, did you try many Pinots when you were
I
there
tried
after
many
this movie?
Pinots.
You were inspired from this film.
It really ended up being like, because
Yeah.
we were just going on wine tastings where like everyone was trying to say every time about what their opinion about every
Yeah.
wine, when it's like you really don't need to state your
Right.
opinion on every wine, especially because most people don't really know what they're saying. Like they're just like blabbering. So they're all like, this one I like because it's smooth. And then two wines later, they're like, I don't like it because it's not it doesn't have as much character. It's too smooth. I'm like, you guys are just contradicting yourself. Like, this one's bitter. I don't like the Chardonnay, but it's bitter. And then two wines later, I like this one because it's a little sour. I'm like, you guys are just saying things,
You either like the
But-
wine or you don't.
But it's fun. It's fun to go. It was like a great
Yeah, I love
escape.
wine
It's
tasting.
so-
Yeah.
yeah. Like, well, how can you complain like on a
Yeah.
trip where you're just tasting wines and eating and like
can't.
you're in this remote, beautiful area? Which is also why I'd recommend this movie. I know I'm going back and forth a little sloppily, but Sideways is also a great escape. It's like a comedy, but like if you guys have seen Alexander Payne movies before, like The Descendants or Election,
Election,
it's a very like well written, kind of based in real life, like just good like script specifically. So and just very relatable and stuff like that. And Paul Giamatti has like a lot of anxiety in this, which is also very fun to watch because Paul Giamatti has that like side to him as an actor. Like he's very good at playing just neurotic guys with anxiety. And so this one, he's like he'll like there's scenes of him just running through wine fields, like chugging wine, like when he's going through anxiety, and like Thomas Hayden Church is running after him and stuff like that. So yes, I highly recommend Sideways. I also highly recommend the Santa Barbara wine country if you're looking to get away. I don't think we've ever recommended a trip on this podcast before.
It's a first.
Yeah, first time for everything. I love it. I'll have to watch Sideways before I go to Santa
Yeah,
Barbara.
exactly. Yeah, but make sure to watch Sideways before you go for
Can't go to
some
Santa Barbara
reference.
before watching Sideways.
And I guess since we're like doing these all at once, I'll move to a couple others.
Yeah.
I watched Dan in Real Life.
Yeah.
It's a random pull, but
Yeah,
I'd never
Steve
seen it
Carell.
before.
Random Steve Carell pull, yeah.
Yep,
Like early 2000s, right?
late 2000s.
Late
so-
2000s.
Yeah, not too deep. Not too deep of a cut, but it's the movie where Steve Carell is laying on a stack of pancakes.
Yeah.
And I've always thought that, like, I will say that cover doesn't do this movie justice because I think it makes it look like this movie is not like kind of a low grade comedy almost with
Yeah.
Steve Carell. But actually, I thought this movie was really good. Not just like a comedy, but like one that's like a movie that's really smart about, just human interactions and kind of like the stage that Steve Carell's character is in this. Like has 3 daughters. He lost his wife. They lost their mom, and so he's very overprotective about these daughters. He hasn't had much of a life outside of these daughters, and suddenly he meets Juliette Binoche, possibly is how you say her name.
Sure.
He meets her in a bookstore, and they like hit it off, and then he goes back to this family party that he's at. Like they're having kind of a family weekend in this is kind of like, I don't know, like East Coast Rhode Island-y town, something like by the water, like they have like a cabin up there, that sort of thing. So it's like a family weekend at this cabin up there. And Dane Cook, Steve Carell's brother, at least in this movie, introduces the family to his girlfriend, who ends up being who Steve Carell met at the bookstore. So, hijinks ensue. Kind of Steve Carell gets through a lot of this, like a lot of the problems he's been having and not being able to let go of his wife through just the fact that she's there this weekend, and the fact there's a lot of tension that the two like each other, but Dane Cook is there and all that stuff, and Steve Carell, really like feels connected to her, and so is like being passive aggressive towards Dane Cook and stuff like that. So like this is very like I don't know. I don't think the plot synopsis I'm giving does it justice because it sounds very basic, but I think it's just like very well done and very subtle and very smart. So I think Dan in Real Life, I would highly recommend. Like, I think Steve Carell's in a lot of bad films because of like his career has this weird trajectory due to him being on one of the like biggest shows that we've grown up with. And so I think he's, as he's tried to climb out of the Michael Scott like role, he's been in a lot of like weird movies and arguably a lot of not good ones. But I would say like this one is maybe one of the better just movies that he's been in that's not like Anchorman and 40-Year-Old Virgin or something like that.
Right. He does seem to kind of jump around a little bit, but every once in a while he does throw a good one. And I think Dan in Real Life, like you said, is a good one. Like he'll always throw in, like he threw in like Beautiful Boy and like The Big Short.
Yeah.
And,
And he's in that like Battle of the Sexes.
Yeah.
He's he does those McKay movies. He did that movie, that weird one with Channing Tatum. I forget what it's called. I'm like trying to like spot it on here right now.
Right. He did like Night at the Museum and stuff like that. Like certain.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the most talented, like not only comedic actors, but just actors for me. So like it's just I know he's like definitely been trying. Like it's why he left The Office. He was trying to do other things and have a more diverse career, but I think he's definitely had trouble in doing that just because of maybe the way he's perceived by the business and stuff like. Oh, Foxcatcher is the film.
The wrestling one.
Yeah, Foxcatcher. Yeah, where Steve Carell plays John DuPont. And that's a weird one. It's a weird Carell movie.
Wasn't he nominated for an Oscar for that too?
I mean, yeah, they all were. Like him, Ruffalo, and Tatum are all like that. They were all like nominated because it is a very immersive movie where they're required to have very immersive performances. But it's very weird. Like when I'm watching it, I almost feel like it's Steve Carell doing, like Michael Scott is doing like an impression, like pretending to be like a blind guy or something like that. I can't take it that seriously, even though I know he on his end is very much trying to be a serious actor in this movie.
Hard to unsee it.
I'm just picturing his like prosthetic nose and all the makeup he has in that movie, and then
he kind of talks like
so low.
Yeah, he kind of talks like, yes, so you want to be a wrestler, like
yeah, you gotta make weight. You gotta make weight, kid.
Yeah,
it just seems
his
like
face
it
looks
was
so
a
funny.
character that Michael Scott would like be spoofing on his own. So I can't, like I can't. But he also has like that weird movie, Crazy Stupid Love.
Yeah.
Which I remember I used to really like, but I'm not sure what I would think about it now because I feel like it has very odd views on, like it's trying to make big statements on relationships and love and marriage and stuff like that. And I'm not sure if I totally agree with them on rewatch. But it definitely is a movie that is going for it in like terms of being a rom-com that has something to say and is trying to end profoundly and stuff like that.
Right. Definitely one of those like early 2010 romantic comedy movies that fit in there. So I mean, at least I think that's when it came out. It was early 2010.
Yeah, no, 2011.
Okay, yeah. So it was right there.
It was a big one too when it came out. Everyone watched that trailer where Gosling's like, trying to man him up and be like, you got to wear a suit like this, it's like beginning of Stone Gosling like fandom, like where everyone wants to see together all the time. And there's that clip of Emma Stone in the trailers going like, you kidding me? It's like it's photoshopped, like everyone knows that moment. Yeah, big movie. I mean, it's got Marissa Tomei as a side character, Kevin Bacon as a side character. The leads are Carell and Julianne Moore and Stone and Gosling.
Yeah.
I mean, huge movie.
Yeah, that cast was stocked. Completely big.
Crazy.
But anyways, that's because I watched. What was that from? What did I watch?
Dan in real life.
Dan in Real
Yeah.
Life. Thank you.
Yes.
See, I guess it's not that memorable of a movie, but I guess I will end this short movie bender by saying last night I watched Lightyear.
Oh, okay.
And I remember, John, we were talking about like the trailers last episode, right? We were talking about how trailers, leave an impression about that,
Yep.
because we don't do that often. And Brendon, I know you can definitely respect that as a guy who goes to the movies a lot. So you probably
do.
have a lot of the trailers that are coming up memorized. And,
Most definitely. I think I've
um,
seen my fair share of every trailer that's come out
Right,
this year.
right.
So
and that is part of the fun of it.
It
Like
is,
you go
it
back
is.
to the movies and you're like, oh, I know how this trailer goes beat for
Right.
beat. I can't wait to see that,
Definitely.
And Lightyear was one that where I was like, this trailer's good. This trailer's good. Like I didn't know if I was gonna see it, but I definitely liked the Starman.
Bowie,
And it shows him,
yeah.
like he's like taken off into space,
Right.
and it's like Buzz Lightyear. I was like, this is great. Like that was a great idea to for this trailer.
Oh, yeah.
Then the movie came out. I didn't see it, and I did not hear good things. I heard it wasn't good. Then there's like Tim Allen says makes famous headlines, says it has no connection to Buzz Lightyear, which I wasn't surprised by either. I mean, so despite those things, I still watched it because I was like, I want to see it, just to say I saw it. And we did cover Toy Story 1 and 2 last year, so if you've listened to this podcast for that long, you know that we are passionate about Toy Story here, and
You're damn
hence
right.
Buzz Lightyear.
Heck yeah.
Right. And so unfortunately, I did not like Lightyear very much. I'm going to be like, I'm not going to be very harsh. I'm going to try to be not harsh because I know this is a movie for kids. Like, so I'm not going to like,
Yeah.
shit on this. Like they're trying to like make it for the new generation of children, and they do put in a lot of effort into world building here and like creating a kind of a new story. Like this is not like a cookie cutter story where I feel like they took it easy. Like it's actually kind of like intricate for a kids movie. They play actually a lot into that like the interstellar, like everyone ages more and stuff like that. And
Right.
except that, they don't get as like messed up and existential with it because it's for kids. And also like this movie has an animation budget like on it. Like while I was watching, I'm like, wow, we are in new territory all the time. Like there's so
Incredible.
many set pieces and stuff like that. But I have to agree with Tim Allen, as in that I felt no connection to the actual Buzz Lightyear. It had a little bit to do with the writing, and it had a little bit to do with that Tim Allen doesn't voice him. Chris Evans does not. It's not enough, Buzz Lightyear is so associated with Tim Allen's voice to me, and the fact
yeah.
that it's Chris Evans instead. Sometimes he doesn't sound a thing. Sometimes he sounds like Buzz, like a younger Buzz. Sometimes he doesn't sound a thing like Buzz. And at that point, I was just kind of like, damn, like, what is this? Like, this is not a Buzz Lightyear movie, And like, it's a lot of recycled lines from Toy Story 1 and 2 of things that Buzz says to bring it back. And it just wasn't, I didn't feel it was like, I just felt it was there to get new kids into Buzz Lightyear. And as for someone who grew up with the Buzz Lightyear that actually has a lot of like rich character and like things that I grew, a lot of themes that I grew up with as a kid that like helped shape me and stuff. This doesn't have any of that. So I just felt very disappointed, and I like really couldn't wait for it to be over as well. Cause I just didn't feel any connection towards it.
It's too bad. Man.
It is.
Yeah. It's also
was too
confusing
bad.
why they have they have to have a different actor be young Buzz Lightyear when he's just, he's a toy, so he's made. That's it. He doesn't grow. It's just like of course he's always Buzz Lightyear, and who's Buzz Lightyear? It's Tim Allen. Yeah, I don't.
Right.
Right. It would be weird to have the toy have a different voice than what they have on the actual movie. So, yeah, this movie was one I memorized the trailer for and was excited
Right.
for
It
when
was
I
a
went
good
in.
trailer.
It was a great trailer. I loved it. But I think they really dulled down on a lot of they really deep dived into a lot of the comedy aspects, which I mean it's a kids movie. Like you said, I can't really dig on it too hard. Uh,
Yeah.
but it dragged for me, I think, toward the end. That
For
was
sure.
something
It,
I
it,
really
it dragged.
I
I
needed
was
to,
like, I wanted to shut it off last night, but I was like, I gotta get the login on Letterboxd.
gotta keep it in. Gotta make sure. And they did throw in a lot of the lines from Toy Story every once in a while to help my fandom stay alive. But at the same time, I was like, maybe they just threw that in there because I'm watching it.
Yeah.
And because people like me are watching it, not because it actually fit the movie. So I was like, okay. But no, this is really low on my.
I didn't care about any of the new characters, like once again, they they have that cat in there.
Right.
They have like a Siri for Buzz's ship called Ivan. I'm like supposed to like at the end they're like, "Oh, welcome back, Ivan," as they're like about to take off,
Right.
and Ivan's like, "Hello, sir," and I'm like, I'm really supposed to care about Ivan in this?
Right.
Like after all this, I'm supposed to like take away that Ivan's important,
Yeah, they dedicated it to Ivan basically.
And there are also after credit scenes
Yeah.
in which they are hinting that there is more to this Buzz Lightyear trilogy, and I was like, damn, like I am not tuning in for that.
Kiki Palmer voiced
Right.
the daughter of his like shipmate from in the past.
Right.
And I was like looking and I was like, man, she did Nope this year and that was so good. And I was like, and then she voiced this one and I was like, this movie doesn't fit her talents for what she's did. The cast was there. I was just like, okay. But yeah, Tim Allen, I think coming out saying it wasn't part of Toy Story was almost like a hint of him saying, I don't love this movie either, because he was like, I don't want to put my name on it or anything like that.
Yeah, I was just like a little offended by this movie because I am a Buzz Lightyear guy.
Right.
Buzz Lightyear was a big deal to me. I owned 2 different toys, and Buzz was my guy. So
big Lightyear head growing up. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Disney, you've ruined Buzz for Luke. We gotta talk to somebody.
Yeah, I'm not about this new Buzz.
I'm gonna make my own Buzz Lightyear and I'm gonna do it right.
But yeah, that's the end of my bender. I guess I could touch quickly on. I'm trying to get into the Quentin Tarantino podcast that he has, the Video Archives podcast, because I get a kick out of Quentin Tarantino and how big of a nerd he is. And that's definitely what this podcast is. And I watched like the movies that are on his like first episode of the podcast. And there are these 2 movies that are such like deep cuts. It's like this John Carpenter movie that he made like when he was in film school with Dan O'Bannon, who apparently like wrote Alien. And so it's like an interesting collaboration. And and then it's this movie called Cocaine Cowboys, which actually features Andy Warhol as an actor in it. And so it's these 2 weird like movies that I would never watch, but are like I found out because of Quentin Tarantino's podcast. And it's definitely the type of movies where I'm like, I can totally see why these guys, like I was a little bored during both films, but I can see why these guys are into it because they are such movie nerds that for them, it's like, just like the fact that they exist for them is probably gets their juices flowing,
Nice. I didn't know Tarantino had a podcast.
Yeah, it's called the Video Archives podcast. So it's like, it's based on the fact that Quentin Tarantino bought basically when that video store that everyone knows that he worked at before he became a director. Like before it shut down, Quentin Tarantino bought all the VHS tapes, like all of them. So a little relating to Brendon here today.
He bought up the
yeah.
tapes. He's
Quentin
buying
Tarantino bought like the whole inventory of this store.
It's great.
And so they're like, the podcast is basically based off of them going through some of those like VHS tapes that they used to watch when Quentin and Roger Avery would work at the store and just watch a lot of movies.
Wow. I'll have to throw that on my list for watching for podcasts. So that sounds
Yeah, it's cool because you can follow
great.
along and watch the weird movies that they talk about and stuff.
More movies to purchase. It's on my list.
Right. But yeah, that's my thing. John, what are your reports?
Yeah, let's see. Well, I don't have a ton of Letterboxd logs recently. Yeah, not to pull excuses, but it's just been a busy time. But but I'm trying to fix that now. And I started with when I'm a little bit busy, I tend to go more towards like YouTube video, mindless watching, in my downtime. But in that time, I saw that Wilco. Speaking of Criterion, Wilco was in the Criterion closet, and they just posted the video for that the other day. And I basically worship the ground where Jeff Tweedy walks, and he recommended being there, and I'd never seen being there. I'd seen Hal Ashby did Harold and Maude too, right?
Yeah, and the last detail.
Right. So yeah, I was excited to get back into this. I was like, Jeff Tweedy recommends it, I'm gonna watch it. So kind of like Tarantino, it's taking a recommendation. It's making me more interested in seeing it, and I really loved being there. Peter, I don't think I've seen Peter Sellers in a role besides Pink Panther or Dr. Strangelove, really. So
same. And he's very different in this.
So he's very different, and it's such a like nice, pleasant movie. It really like silly too, and it's just I don't know, it was very heartwarming just to see this very simple man go through life and have all these people sort of assume the best of him, or just assume that he's this eccentric, smart, witty guy. But really just nice film to watch, and I'm glad I caught it. It definitely has a cool Criterion cover as well to add to the
it's very iconic of him like in the sky with his like just the shape of him with his like hat, I believe, and like an umbrella or something like that.
Yes.
Being there is good. Like that really hit hard for me when I saw it. I remember I was trying to watch like all of Hal Ashby's movies, and this is definitely one of the more like, along with Harold and Maude, one of the more like, I feel like sad, and like they all kind of are very like sentimental and sad, but are also like very real comedies too. And so that's why I like them so much. And then they're also from the 70s, and who doesn't love that too? So Hal Ashby's definitely like an old favorite of mine at this point.
Yeah, Hal Ashby's got good ones. One of my Criterion pickups was Shampoo, one of Hal Ashby's.
Oh great costumes with is it Ned Beatty? Ned Beatty looks, as usual, really great in the costumes in this. And Shampoo's good. That's a cool one to buy.
Being there and Harold and Maude, I both think, like you said, they're like sad. They're like these sad but like comforting movies at the same time. They would fit well in the gentle category of the bummies. Yeah, so I caught that, and also Prey. And the only other thing I'll bring up, I think, is another 2021 movie, which I'm just going to assume that Brendon has seen.
I would hope that I'd seen it at least. So,
but I just saw The Black Phone.
Yes.
The Ethan
I have
Hawke.
not seen that one yet. I'm waiting. I need to like find people to watch it with because I don't want to watch it alone.
Just like same reasoning as Halloween. Is that
Yep.
something could come in? Yeah.
I could die.
Gotta have someone with you, someone watching your back. John, what'd you think of the Black Phone, man?
But yeah, I liked the Black Phone. I think this was one definitely not to the same extent as Lightyear, but the trailer I was like so in on, and looks really just creepy, unique, and I liked that Ethan Hawke was in it. I think I maybe wasn't as impressed with it seeing it, and it maybe felt a
Definitely.
little slow at sometimes, but I definitely thought there were a lot of. I mean, it definitely wasn't what I was expecting either.
Is
It-
Black
No,
iPhone
definitely.
A24?
I believe so. It would make sense.
I'm just like, it
I don't
just
know for
seems
sure.
like the one of the A24 horror movies of the summer. You know, it just kind of looks like that.
Yeah, I'm sure it probably is. Without definitely without giving any too much away. It wasn't like super predictable. At least I didn't think so.
No,
And
I didn't think so either, John. I agree with you on that.
yeah, because I thought it was going a completely different direction with Ethan Hawke's character, and it didn't. But yeah, I really liked it. I guess I just thought it was. I don't know. I had high expectations for it based on the trailer and just basically how creepy and cool his mask looks on the poster
Yeah.
too. So
Yeah.
Definitely. They
yeah,
did a good job of marketing this one. This was a
yeah,
horror movie that I knew about and was excited to watch, which now doesn't always happen right away, especially like a month or two advance when I know about it. And I'm like, okay. And then Scott Derrickson was the guy that directed it, and he did Sinister, which I was a big fan of growing up. So I was excited to see the twist with this one. I think I gave it a lower score than I remember giving it because I looked at my letterbox just now, but it was a lot lower than I thought. I think basically because there was a twist, and I don't think I loved the twist, if you understand what I'm
yeah,
saying, because I don't want
yeah.
to ruin it for anybody. But I didn't love the twist, and I wish they would have spent the whole movie in the basement. But I think besides that, I loved the creepiness of it.
So yeah.
I thought of one more movie before we talk about Kicking and Screaming. Just one
Okay,
more.
An
I'm
encore.
excited.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, after credits scene. Um, so I watched a movie on like Saturday night or Sunday night. After I got off of work, so it was like really late. I watched Cha Cha Real Smooth,
Ah,
which came out this
yes.
year, and it's been the talk of it's the talk of the town at times, and yeah, all I really knew about this movie was that it's about a Jewish college kid who throws like bar mitzvah parties, and that's really all I knew, and that it was like a comedy and also like a drama, and that Dakota Johnson's in it. And I did not know who Cooper Raiff was until this movie.
Yep.
And so he directs, writes, and stars in this. He's like 25 years old, born in 97. He's apparently he became notable for his movie Shithouse. Like he took it to South by Southwest,
Yep.
basically, and he also stars and directs in that. And I will say one of the first things I took from this movie is that the main actor, like I just like liked him a lot, and he like reminded me of a younger Adam Scott.
Mhm.
And like I just felt like I was like, who is this actor? Like I feel like I've seen him before. I hadn't seen him before, but I was
Right.
like, who is this guy? He just felt like a guy with like such a, I don't know, relatable screen presence. And I just liked him a lot. I thought he was so good in this. This movie is like really about it's about kind of being selfless and kind of like doing things for others. It's about love a lot. It's about youth. It's about like finding yourself. It's about so many things, and it is told in such a kind of relatable way. and it's very funny, and it has just very real conversations. And I will say by the end of this like movie, I was getting very emotional, and especially about his relationship with like Dakota Johnson. Like the movie really pulls on your
Definitely.
heartstrings a lot. So yeah, highly recommend this movie. It's not only like fun, but it like will make you want to be better in life and not be a selfish asshole. And just yeah, it's really good. It's one of those that's good for humanity. I really feel that way.
Most definitely.
Nice.
I love Cha Cha Real Smooth, and Cooper AF is definitely becoming one of my favorite directors. After Shithouse was one of my favorite movies of 2020. And that one has another kind of good message along with it as well about being
Right. Yeah. I mean, after this,
selfless
I
and kind to
really want to
others.
watch
So
Shithouse. I might
I
get to it by the weekend.
Luke, I recommend. It was one of my favorite movies of 2020. Not very much talked about, honestly. Because he
Right.
was able to get Cha Cha Real Smooth on Apple TV. I think it is kind of showing people that he is getting
Right. Well,
bigger and it
and
got
he's got
connected.
Dakota Johnson
Right,
in
of
it. He's got
course.
Leslie Mann in
Much
it.
bigger
Like,
people.
so he's clearly got he's building his film clout, you know?
Definitely. But yeah, Shithouse was I believe one of his debuts. So it was really cool to see that one for sure. I would definitely recommend. It's always got a good message behind it, but it's got really real world stuff and real world issues that a lot of people deal with and don't even realize it. And I found it very
Right.
relatable because I think he is kind of in that 20s age range himself, or maybe
Yeah.
a little older. And so it's a lot more relatable, and he knows what's going on and he puts it into the movie. So, and I love that he stars in them too because he gets to work around that. So
Right.
that's really
Yeah, and
great.
he's very good. I mean,
He's great. Yeah.
he really justifies that he's starring
Yeah.
in him because he is
Oh
like
yeah.
fantastic, you know?
Most definitely. Most definitely. Yeah. Cha Cha Ruth Move is one of my favorites of this year. Go out and watch it.
All right, I guess we're transitioning now to the movie of the day.
Movie
Our
of the
back to
day.
school, our end of summer movie. All right, I guess we could start off. I guess we all played soccer as kids, right? I mean, we
Yeah,
all have that
Mhm.
experience.
definitely.
In the age of like first to fifth grade, like the pee-wee soccer as they would call it.
I
Orange
didn't play that
slices.
long, but I did.
Yeah,
I
I
did
didn't play
play
that
Maybe all
long
right. Maybe I'm like
the.
saying, yeah, maybe it's
I
like
was like a
first
year
to
or
like
two for
fourth
me. So
grade. Yeah, like
Yeah,
maybe a little less than that. But
I think I
I
did
loved
like
soccer as a
kindergarten
kid.
and first grade, maybe.
Yeah.
Like the
Okay.
the very ending, like when I ended, it was like the last time you could just like kick the ball around and nobody cared about the
Right.
rules and stuff. You know,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
about when
But
I
like,
retired. Yeah.
right. I think what's funny about it, like, is how loose youth soccer is.
Yeah.
As a kid, and especially like how, especially since it's not a big like, soccer's not a big sport in America. Um,
Right.
or at least if like Americans are into it, they are watching foreign football,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know, and like
Usually.
we don't
Yeah.
learn like how you're actually supposed to play. It's mainly soccer for us. When you grow up like here, it's like, okay, just so that we can get our energy out and run
Right.
around mainly.
Right.
Like you're not taught like soccer technique or anything
No.
or how you're supposed to play. I just remember like I loved like chasing after the ball. That's
Oh
pretty
Yeah.
yeah.
much all
Right.
I would
Yeah.
do. And my strategy is if the ball ever came to me, I didn't know how to handle it, but I would kick it ahead and I could usually run fast and catch up with it and like get a chance to at least maybe shoot and stuff. Like that's what I had going for me personally. Like I could run like for forever, you know, but I did not know how to like kick the ball well or anything
Right.
like that.
And then at that age, like I don't know if it was expected. I think the parents are just having fun watching us kick the ball around.
Yeah,
And
they give us like orange
yeah,
peels and
right.
stuff like that.
High C and stuff at the end of every match and whatnot.
Right,
I
right.
played a different position. I played goalie. I was the goalie in first and
Oh,
second.
wow.
So
Okay.
I was in the net. So I was just getting balls kicked at me. And as a first and second grader playing goalie, like I just remember like diving around, jumping for balls I didn't need to dive for. I was just having fun. I think I was just jumping in
Right.
the dirt. So I mean, that was a good time for sure. But yeah, I did not play soccer for very long. So I learned quickly on I would
Yeah.
not
Well, and
not
I
be a
think
great
the
soccer
era we're
player.
talking about of soccer is like what this movie
Yeah.
is. It's like where when every kid is playing just because that's what you do because you're in that
Yep.
age group, you
Yep.
know. But what's funny is that I think what's funny about it is that like there's actually like Robert Duvall's team is one of those teams, but they take it very seriously. Whatever that what's that actor's name? I have it pulled up. I don't know. Josh
Oh,
Hutcherson. Josh
yeah,
Hutcherson's like
Oh
a
yeah.
prodigy soccer
right.
kid in it, and Robert Duvall's like so passionate about it.
Yeah, it's crazy. I love these sports movies where they're taking something super seriously that isn't at all like youth soccer.
Is there another
Yeah.
That's
window?
what we were just talking about. Yeah.
There's four of us now. There's
There's
Luke from the past and Luke from the present now.
That's right. It's a new era of
I
Luke
feel like
now
we
here.
gotta keep I think I could remove this one, but I don't want to risk also taking you out. So I think we'll just leave it.
Right. So we were like talking about.
Well, okay, I think we're kind of alluding to the cast, which I think is a good place to start too, because
Yeah.
this is quite a cast.
It's a big cast. Yeah.
Everyone
Yeah, and
from the
I
main people to the side characters to the parents. This is
yeah.
yeah.
And I think when you first see this as a kid, which I remember like it was just something that was playing on TV or something like that.
Right.
And I got really sucked in. Like I remember when I first saw this, I was like, what is this? It was right up my alley. Just, a childhood sports movie, that sort of thing. That's all I really needed. But I didn't understand how crazy that like of a cast it really was. Like I didn't even really think I knew who Mike Ditka was when I first saw
Right.
this, that sort of thing. And Robert Duvall to me was the guy from Secondhand Lions. That's who I knew like Robert Duvall from. So like I didn't get how crazy like similar to like how when James Caan was an Elf, I didn't get how like
Mm,
it was crazy that he's paired with Will Ferrell, you know what I mean? It was more
right.
like, oh, it's great for these old actors that they can be paired with this comedy guy, that like is so popular right now, But like, yeah, Robert
Oh,
Duvall and Will Ferrell is a crazy pairing, and
Oh yeah.
they also give them like the weirdest dynamic in this movie too. Like that whole opening section, where Will Ferrell eventually goes like, "Welcome to my life." Like,
Right.
this is what my life has been. It pretty much just shows his dad like, really screwing him over and having no respect for him and just kind of being a loser and trying to compete with his like son all the
Yeah.
time,
Basically just on edge to be on competition with his dad 24/7, like in every
Right.
aspect of his life, like his job, his wife, his sports, his kids.
Right.
Like, nothing.
I didn't
on-
realize until just now when you mentioned James Caan too that Will Ferrell in two different movies plays the son of two
Of a Godfather
yeah,
actor.
who's
Of one
Sonny
of the
Corleone
Corleone
and
brothers. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd never put that together until now. That's so funny. That's
And
probably
like
he's probably
early
the only
in his career
actor.
too, where Will Ferrell is not even totally Will Ferrell yet.
Right.
He is like
Yeah,
these movies he is becoming Will Ferrell still,
Hasn't
because this
taken
movie very much feels like SNL like
Mm-hmm.
sketch Will Ferrell,
yeah. This is definitely the beginnings of what would turn into everybody knows Will Ferrell and kind of he has like touches of his signature just sort of emotions and just he can be very erratic and it's like touches of that here and then
Right.
once you get to like the McKay movies and all that then it really they take it up to 11 but yeah.
I mean, I like in this one specifically how it's about like he has a lot of repressed rage
Right.
from his dad growing up. So at like one point he's having like a panic attack, and he's like
When he's in
talking,
his
he's like
son's
talking
room,
to
yeah,
Sam. He's like,
he's on the bed.
he's like, you don't want to be that guy. You don't want to be that guy. You don't want to be the guy at the end of the bench. And he's just like breathing. Like I like that. Like it's, you know, he's having like a Tony Soprano like breathing thing going on, and his son's like, it's happening again, Mom. You know.
Right. Yeah, like it's such an occurrence that the mom knows right what to do. She just slaps him, and she's
Right,
gotta
right.
slap. You gotta come out of it, and he's just
Right. And also for most of this movie, like Will Ferrell's character is like, a lot of this movie, Will Ferrell is like a really good guy, and that's kind of the nature of what he's playing. He's just a very innocent dad, and a lot of what's happening around him is like he's kind of being wronged, you know, he's kind of like a victim. But then once he becomes coffee addict Will Ferrell, it just goes like to 10 of like, this guy is doing everything bad. And like and actually for a kids movie, the movie is pushing it a lot of the times, I think, with a lot of the bids.
definitely.
Like
yeah.
it's funny
It
and
is.
I can't believe they do it, and for the 2000s it works, especially, but like he pushes a kid on the soccer field,
Oh yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
that's like a bit, he pushes a kid down, just
Oh, yeah.
things like that, you know. And but I also think he plays it off well in terms of the asshole dad that is taking, you know, that is taking the game way too seriously. I think he plays that very well. And like just like his pants, his hat, his sunglasses, his espresso
Gear,
machine,
yeah.
his attitude. I think it's really fun. I just think it's great.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I mean, growing up with sports, like in a house where I played a lot of sports, like there was always like dads that were like
Yeah.
of sons of teams that I was on, and like they would take the game so seriously, and they'd be there
Yeah.
every game shouting and stuff, and like
Right.
as a kid we just thought it was there, but like looking at this movie, I'm like,
Right.
man, this reminds me of some of these parents that I had.
Right. That is one of my favorite things to look back on in childhood sports. Is
yeah.
like I had like a basketball coach who was so intense during my middle school years. Like you would think it was like we were in a movie, like it was like we were in Hoosiers or something like that. Like it was like we were all about, like he would like preach the fundamentals. He would preach like, we are a defensive basketball team. We play man to man. You know, like so to the core of like what basketball is. Use a bounce pass, you throw the ball off the glass, like, and he was insane. Like he was so insane, and it was clearly like he was putting his life into that. You know, he was so obsessed with our team. But there were times where we would play games and there'd be a dad that was even like, you would hear in the locker room, like through the vents, how much he was going at the other team. And I'd be like, wow, he's even crazier than our coach. Like, this is insane. So like, I feel like we've all grown up around that. And I think that's one of my favorite things to look back on, is just like dads who like were so insane and like about the teams. And like you, like at the time I would be like, you know, I'd be like scared about it, you know, like back then I was like so scared of all these coaches and stuff. And, you know, I would actually like look up to them and stuff. But then when I look back and I'm like, wow, like those guys just really had like nothing better going on. And like, that's why they were doing it. And like, just like taking the coaching like way too seriously is kind of just like to fill up time. You know what I mean? Like if you're doing that as a dad.
I always also think back to the Y ball days when you would occasionally get to coach your friend's team if the coach didn't get to show up and have some fun with that. Yeah.
Right.
You know, I also, you know, you mentioned Mike Ditka in the beginning too, which I think is a great addition to this movie. And as a kid, I loved it because just anything Chicago sports and
the Bears.
The Bears, yeah, of course.
The Bears. Yeah.
And
and they like, it's written well for Mike Ditka too. Like he's very unhinged. it's just like hilarious that he lives next door, and that he has a rivalry with Robert Duvall, and that he especially, like we're talking about, like it's about like if you're coaching kids, you usually don't have anything going on. He clearly has nothing going on,
Right.
like in this movie, and he has like a bear's shrine in his house, and he like smoking cigars in it, and he's like just like being really like dishonest with his wife about like smoking in the man cave and stuff.
Yeah, I feel like he's just the perfect counterpart to Will Ferrell in this.
Right.
And then to see Will Ferrell sort of turn into an even crazier,
Right.
insane version of Mike Ditka. And
Right.
even, yeah, like Mike Ditka just like yelling at his wife. I feel like he did a good job. Just like he has good comedic chops. Just
Yeah,
Uh,
for sure.
He
For
did.
sure.
He did. Most of his scenes were some of my favorites in the movie. Like, and seeing Will Ferrell like try to like look at when he looks at Mike Ditka in the movie, like thinking like, okay, this is
Right.
what I should be as this pee-wee soccer coach. Like,
Right.
this
Yeah,
is what I should
he,
look like.
yeah, like it shows him like Mike Ditka's kind of like walking up the
Right.
sidelines up and down the way coach does, and like Will Ferrell's going like step for step
Oh
with
yeah,
him as
like
he's
yelling
doing
right
it.
in his ear behind him,
Right,
and
yeah.
like
Like
and saying
I
the
think
same things.
yeah, Mike Ditka's going like, go,
You're
go,
right.
and Will's
It's like,
like, that's how you be a coach.
go,
Go, you know.
And I loved that because I was like, Will Ferrell's this nice guy, genuine guy who's had a hard time, and he's like
Right.
Mike Ditka's character. That's what a Pee Wee soccer coach should look like, you know. And it's like Mike Ditka's just being this grave guy who's just going yelling.
Even
at
little
everybody.
kids in Mexico drink
Right,
coffee. That
yeah.
line. Whatever that line means, but it's like it's funny. It's funny.
It is.
Yeah, and then there's the bit where he like Will Ferrell comes in wearing the
Yes.
Bears vest even, and he's like, "You go." He's like, "Go change, hurry up."
Right.
you
He's
know?
got the very like Ditka signature look with the
yeah.
dress shirt with the bear sweater, and
Which
it's
is like funny alone that like Ditka wears that to the practices, like
Yeah.
you know.
yeah, right. It looks nice enough outside. It's like something he'd be wearing at Soldier Field or like wherever the Bears were at the time, and out in the cold, he's coaching like
Yeah.
12-year-olds at soccer. It's like
Yeah, and I don't. They never say where this movie takes place either.
Right.
But for some
It always
reason,
seems to look
Ditka
nice
is
outside.
living in this town.
it seems like the
And that's
Chicago
just-
suburbs to me. But
I guess,
maybe.
yeah, is
Yeah.
what they're trying to say.
I do like
yeah, so-
the original introduction of, well, you kind of get to know the misfits that are the team. What are they? The Tigers, right?
The Tigers, yeah.
The Tigers, yeah.
And then
they're all the non-athletic ones.
Yeah.
On the same team. No one's good. Which I feel like definitely I felt that way sometimes as a kid. I was like, why am I never on the good team? You know, we're always
Right.
getting killed, you know.
Always on the bad team. And it was funny because when they told the son, Will Ferrell's son, that he was getting traded there, he like already knew. He's like, that's the worst team in the league. Like
Right.
they're
right.
so bad. Like can't trade me there and everything.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and like Will Ferrell is even like he's even like scared to ask his dad, like his son's like a bench warmer on his team, and he's even scared to ask his dad, like, hey, can he play? Like it's even like a big deal to like he has to like gear up for the scene where he asks if he can have more playing time. And he's like, oh yeah, he'll have a lot more playing time because I traded him away to the Tigers. Yeah.
And I love that he used the word, like he said traded like it was an actual professional league, and he had like traded him.
Yeah,
for
right.
something. And the scene where the second later where he looks at him and he's like, well, I didn't really get anything for him. It's like he basically just used the word trade to say he got rid of him.
He released him.
He released him.
Technical.
Yeah. The Tigers picked him up off the waiver wire, so he's still there.
I'm glad we agree though on all the Ditka stuff.
Ditka's great.
One more,
yeah.
like before we close out, I guess on Ditka, because I think we did all the. John, did you ever go to Ditka's?
Oh,
the
many
restaurant.
times.
Ditka.
Many
Oh, me
times.
too.
Yeah.
See, that's a
Love
big
Ditka's.
Brennan, I don't know if you ever went there when
I
we
don't
came
think
to
we
town.
did go there.
I don't
That
think we
wasn't
ever
one of
did
the
it, but it's
spots,
like
so.
that is a Chicago spot, Ditka's,
Okay,
where
Ditka's
you
restaurant.
walk in and there's like cigars like in the like in the glass,
Right.
and there's like Bears uniforms on there, and it's like just another high-end Chicago like steak joint, but it's
Oh,
like
great.
it's
Yeah.
good. Like you can
Yeah.
get like a pot roast nachos there. Like I've
Oh,
gotten that as
perfect.
my meal before. They have a good Easter buffet that I've been there for. They make a good steak, and they make a mean steak.
Mean steak. Ditka's signature steak.
I had my my like confirmation like
Oh, right.
celebration thing like after
That's
church.
a thing to have that there
My
for.
like
for
my
sure.
extended
Interesting.
family was in town and we went to Ditka's. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love Ditka's. Yeah. And that's that's part of the reason growing up I think I love this movie too. It's just like you grow up with the character of Ditka being such a
Surrounded
Chicago
by it.
icon,
Yeah.
and you're so
Right.
obsessed with everything Chicago and
Yeah.
Chicago sports. So yeah.
Yeah, it's like I don't know, it's like cool when you grow up in Chicago, like you that's like what we got, like Chicago's not it's not like a super, like it's a big like city on its own, but it doesn't have like in movies as much of a, or in pop culture as much of a weight like as the other big city, the two other big cities. So that's like what we got is like deep dish and the Bears and Mike
Right.
Ditka and Michael Jordan, and then like John Hughes movies and stuff. So anything you can get, even if it is like just getting into the fact that Mike Ditka was in this movie, was like, cool for me as a kid.
Right.
Yeah, to go another Ditka thing, but I do love just when he's first introduced to the team and he's giving that speech.
Yeah.
And it's like these just weird little kids, and he's just like, and you're gonna be champions. You're gonna be
Right,
champions.
You're gonna be champions.
Right. No, I know.
Yeah, he
And
delivers that so well.
it's great. And through the whole movie, he's always wearing his Super Bowl ring that he had for the Bears. And,
Yeah.
and he talks about it like a lot and everything. And like,
Well, and that's another thing from growing up in Chicago, that you never hear enough about that one Super Bowl, the 85 Bears.
Yeah.
Like
right.
you will hear more about that than the 6 Bulls championships, I feel like.
Yeah, definitely. Growing up, that was always still the biggest, holy grail for
It is the
Chicago
85
sports
Bears.
fans. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's Ditka.
That's all. Yeah, that's all the.
All we can.
I guess we can now get into all the stuff with the coffee, the Italians.
Oh, yeah.
He's waiting in line a lot at this same coffee place. Which, like, again, to me, like, a lot of this movie feels like it's like an elongated SNL sketch.
Right.
For most of it.
Yeah.
That happened to be turned into a movie. Like Will Ferrell getting too jacked up on coffee and becoming this like dickhead of a soccer coach. And then like there's eventually a scene where like he's trying all the coffees.
Yeah.
And he's like French roast, like he knows every single one.
Yeah.
And,
like Ditka's training him on the coffee.
yeah, he's
basically,
training him on the coffee. He's like, good. And then he's like, that's my Russian vodka. So
yeah.
basically Ditka's like drunk
Right.
coaching the soccer team as well.
Yeah, and I think like bringing up the SNL skits, like most of the scenes in this movie, I think could be cut up into smaller pieces and
That's
be a
what
bit,
it feels like to me,
like, I think the one scene I always harken back to is when he's in the long line at the coffee shop with the
Right. And they
the
kick
woman
him
from
out.
earlier, yeah, and just
Yeah.
him arguing back and forth with the woman and with the
Right.
coffee baristas, and they kick him
He's
out.
like, are we going right now?
Yeah,
Are we
right. Yeah,
doing
right.
this?"
Right. He
And
gets
then
kicked
he-
out, and
He gets kicked out, and then he like acts like he's walking away, and then he
he
just
comes
like,
back.
runs back. He tries to open the door. They're all holding it,
Right. Stopping
Is it-
him. And he's,
Is a very Will Ferrell version of like a Curb scene, Curb Your Enthusiasm scene. Like it makes me think of
It
when
is.
he's in line getting frozen yogurt and the woman's trying all the different flavors.
Right, yeah, and he's like,
Right.
"You used your sample privileges or something like
Right.
that, whatever,
Oh, you
whatever
gonna
it
taste the
is."
vanilla? Let me guess, what's it gonna taste like? Vanilla.
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
Definitely.
Yeah, and
yeah.
the coffee stuff, like for me, like I find it more funny as an adult because I am now a caffeine addict. I understand that there is like they're not just like, it's a kids movie, so they're not just like using coffee as a like a more family friendly stimulant. Like it is actually like caffeine is its own thing
Right.
that you can go wrong on in your own way. Yeah, you can overdo it for sure. And that like I have had a lot of moments where I've had to step back and be like, okay, Luke, you should not be, drinking like 2 coffees a day and a yerba mate at night. Like that's kind of insanity, no matter how
Yeah, not
productive
good.
you feel,
No.
stuff like that. So yeah, but it's also hard because the field I'm in it's hard not to do that. And then there were times like I remember John and I like a year ago we tried to talk about The Terminal and we had a bit of a real emotional episode, and it was because I was experimenting. I attribute that to a little of experimenting with matcha powder at the time. Like I think like the matcha powder I was buying, like it was mixed into a point where it made me very like wired and get kind of like emotional and sad. I remember. So like caffeine's a thing that can like certain things can affect you away and like not hit you in the right fashion. And like caffeine is very much a drug. And so I think it's funny that this movie really does frame it that way, and that he does overdo it and kind of have to like cut it out. And he actually like in the final game where he is cutting it out, you do see like he kind of goes back to being the old him, which I think is cool.
Right. And I think it was nice that they framed it that every time you thought he couldn't go larger with the coffee, he did. Like there was just another step. Like he'd be having 4 or 5 coffees and they'd all sell like they had the little like fill only written on the top. So no one else was taking one of his 5 coffees. And then just when you think it couldn't go any farther, he buys the golden espresso maker and sits it on the bench, and it's like half the bench for his team, basically. There's no
all the kids are sitting next to the espresso machine for their
and it's
coach.
blowing steam out and stuff at him.
I'm not gonna lie, that thing looks pretty phenomenal though.
It does.
I'm sure Phil was making great coffee.
Like state of the art.
But yeah, it was honestly kind of like an addict thing. Like you just didn't think they could go farther, but he did, and it was like okay, like wow, like surprise. But it was funny to watch him go through that and become regular Phil at the end when he became better, and I was like, okay, this is nice.
Yeah, I like the coffee stuff. I like the coffee arc. He starts to do all these crazy things, and there's a great like when he's like we are the champions playing, and he's like not really celebrating with anyone but himself, and he's like picking up kids, and he's like blowing in, like he kind of is yelling loser into the cones at kids and stuff like that. That like whole section of the movie is really takes it up a whole notch of like Will Ferrell being like kind of offensive.
Oh yeah.
That the rest of the movie doesn't. Like it's really its own section of the movie where the rest of the movie is definitely does not come near to as offensive as that.
Oh yeah, and I mean you talked about earlier about how he pushed the kid on the field, like and yelling at the refs, and there's that one scene where he's bending over, like talking smack to like one of the kids as he's standing there like waiting for the ball. Just like he's like Mr. Fart Pants or like whatever he says to him, and it's childish. It's such a childish banter that he's yelling at this kid, and the kid almost looks at him like he can't even believe that he's like an adult. Like, oh god.
Then he's even getting on the parents too. Makes the
Right.
one dad
Right.
"Go take a lap. Then
Yeah.
his first
Right.
time, like he's
He's timing him up.
just going ape
Yeah.
shit on everyone.
And he's got that perfect like blue suit with the sunglasses. And I think one of the reasons too, like Will Ferrell, getting deeper into Will Ferrell just as an actor and why he is such a comedic powerhouse. He is expert at playing. I think it's partly because of his look and his build. He's perfect at, and like the fact that he is a white dude from California. He just has that like ability to play a shitty guy. And like he's just perfect at playing shitty men and like all the different ways that they manifest. And usually those are like his comedic characters. He's kind of being like a shitty, ignorant guy.
All right.
Right,
Well,
so-
a big part that we have not addressed yet is the
As farts, yeah.
the Italians.
The Italians. Play the
Which-
Italians.
Who introduces the Italians to the team? Does Ditka find them?
It's
Yeah,
Ditka.
that's Ditka
Okay.
again,
And
man.
it's
Ditka
one of the
again.
best scenes because he just takes him to like the meat market.
Yeah.
and
Right, where
everyone
of course
there-
Ditka would go, you know.
Everyone
like-
there knows his name. They're like, "Oh, Coach," they call him Coach, and they're like, "I got your bratwurst," and like they already got his order ready to go, and he's like, and he tells him to go look in the back, and there's the two Italians playing soccer with like a bag in the back, just being better than.
Yeah, I've had like I don't know a journey of like I don't know of opinions on the whole Italian bid and segment because it's a whole bid. There's no reason to have these Italian kids in there other than that like it's like funny that they get Italians that are like really good and like they have all these jokes with the kids trying to relate to them and stuff like
Right.
that. And it just becomes a fun thing that everyone says. They're like, play the Italians. Like,
Right.
I think like when I first saw it as a kid, I was like, wow, these like Italians are like incredible at soccer. This is so cool. Like all the soccer action with them is like really good and stuff. And then like when I got older, I thought it was like really funny. And now it's kind of like a bid I look back on that I used to like that I now think is a little like kind of cheap of a bid, like not that great of a bid. And then they kind of built a whole section of the movie around it, like even casted two kids and
Right.
like it's like a whole thing,
Mhm.
and it's not that interesting because you're just watching these kids like hog the ball the whole time. But it's kind of funny. Like I love I enjoy the montage where they play that one famous Italian song that's in other things. Like that song's in like Casino as well.
Oh, yeah.
And stuff like that. And I think at one point like one of the insecure dads is on the sideline
Oh yeah.
waving a flag
The
and
Italian
stuff
flag.
like that.
Singing an Italian song.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So, like I don't totally like respect it anymore, but I get nostalgia out of it, I guess.
Yeah, they're definitely playing into that stereotype of well, I feel like soccer is more popular in the US is much more popular now than it was at this time. And I just feel like
Right.
there was a stereotype that like, oh,
Right.
who's good
You
at
had to
soccer?
be, like,
The Italians.
Europeans.
Yeah.
Right,
Like the
yeah.
Italians, the Brazilians, they're good at like
Yeah,
it's
right.
just sort of like like an inside joke almost that is like, oh yeah, the
Right.
Italians are the good ones at soccer.
Right.
And so they're thinking, I guess, yeah, how do we make this team good so that Will Ferrell gets competitive? And that's it does
Right.
seem kind of cheap to just
It is.
Yeah.
It is a
Right.
little
It
bit.
was, it
Why
was an
couldn't
easy
they
road to
be-
go down.
why couldn't they get any sort of kid from the suburbs?
Right.
You know?
Exactly.
Just
Exactly.
just a Chicago suburb
It's
kid
just
that's
kind
good
of
at
like-
soccer.
It's kind of like 2000s like racism a little, like just like that, some that they got
The
away with then,
stereotypes,
but
yeah.
they wouldn't really
Yeah.
be able to get away. Definitely wouldn't be able to do it now.
Probably not, though.
Like
I
a
would
whole
assume not.
like a whole segment with like the Italians, not even like a scene. like Maximo and what is the other guy? It's like
Maximo and oh god.
They named
I
him
can't recall.
Maximo.
Yeah, right.
Like Gladiator was made only like a couple years before. It's not that different.
Right. Yeah, they dig really far into it too, and they're a big part of like pretty much the whole movie after they find them.
Gian Piero and Massimo.
John Piermo and Massimo.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought it was also easy to make them work in this very like meat market-ish with like Italian meats and everything.
Right,
and like
right.
and they
Meat
have
come, and then the guy's like,
meat
meat
first.
come first.
and his kids like also don't speak English. Like I thought that was like, so I'm like, they've just been living here
Yeah.
in America. Like
they've been learning about meat, but they haven't learned
just-
English or anything.
they've just been in the back cutting the meat basically.
Yeah,
like,
just isolated back there, like
but somehow
it's really kind of a horror
disposed.
story.
right.
Like they saved these kids from being prisoners of their family butcher shop. Yeah, it's
Right.
Right. I was watching like Pete Holmes like
Mm.
stand up the other day, and he has like a bid where he talks about like no one has any sympathy about being like racist towards Italians
Mario.
ever. Like people are all so like down, like people are so ready to just do an Italian accent or be like a pizza pie or whatever
Right,
it
yeah.
is. And this is just like this is just like an example of that, you know.
Yeah,
Like
I
people are
love that
so
bit.
easy to make fun of Italians.
He does that like Mario impression, and he's like,
Right.
"Don't laugh. He needs help. Help him. He's
Right.
struggling with the language." Yeah.
So that's it. And a thing that aligns with Italians that we haven't covered is the character the character of Beyond Sun,
Oh, Byung Sun.
Yeah.
who we haven't talked about, which is a very it's a strange character. I mean, it makes sense. Like it makes sense to have like I guess something like that on this team, like like an extremely short kind of nice kid. But I feel like they I don't know, they kind of make fun of him for being like Asian. They give him like a weird name, like a
Yeah.
super Asian name, and he happens to have lesbian parents. And there's also a very, very weird interaction when Will Ferrell first meets the lesbian couple, as in like it's like something that's very odd to him that they're
Right.
together, you know.
He continually tells them that he doesn't understand, and he's like, oh,
Yeah, right.
like-
It takes him forever to get it that they're together.
right. And they continue the bit through the movie, like when he like chest bumps one woman later on in the
Right,
movie,
right.
like she
He
falls,
like knocks down
and then-
one, and then the
yeah,
girl knocks
the
him
other
over.
one gets him.
Yeah. It's very like 2005 thing
Right.
to do. Like this is all new. How do
Right.
we wrap our heads around this? Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And now it's
right.
just very outdated.
Right. And he continues that scene. He's like, you guys are better. Like you're better.
Oh, it's
Right.
both better.
You're
Yeah,
better.
both you're better in a different way. Like
yeah. Better in a different way.
right.
Yeah, and then there's all this stuff with Beyond, like when Beyond Song like first, like they're like has that scene where they're kicking the ball around to each other and introducing himself. When Beyond Song gets the ball kicked to him, they have like, you know, old Chinese like
yes.
music playing. It's
Yeah,
like such
right.
bullshit, you know, like
Yeah.
Such an odd choice for
he's not even like the Italians where like he's from there. He's like an American
Right.
kid, you know. And Byung Sun's like, I am a very kind person. And,
right.
like when they're asked about their strengths, and Will Ferrell's like, well, that's sweet, you know, or something
It's
like
like, there we go. He's like,
that.
For some reason I always think of the line too when they're around like the bonfire, and he's like, I've already decided
yeah,
if the pizza
Yeah,
does
that
not
we'll
arrive
eat-
tonight,
we'll
we'll all
eat
eat Byung Sung.
right.
yeah.
Like, oh,
Oh,
I'm kidding, but he does look delicious, doesn't he? Yeah, for some reason I
Right.
always
right, no reason.
Right.
think of that. Like, yeah,
That's
well, I
one of
think I'm
those
in.
scenes where Will Ferrell is very much in his own movie. Like he's acting around all these kids and he's acting like a maniac, but it's just like he is in his own world, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Overall, I feel like we've gotten to there.
I think
Uh,
mostly pretty good. I think the only other scene that I loved was everything with the Pele ball. Everything with the Pele
Oh,
ball
the
was
Pele ball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
the Pele
Forgot
ball
about
was
that.
yeah, I
big
forgot
for
about the
me.
Pele ball. Yeah, that's another thing we didn't cover.
Watching the original scene with his dad ripping the Pele ball away from him, like
No,
it
it's my ball.
just reminded me like like me and my dad would go to Tigers games and my dad would catch a ball and of course being a dad he'd hand me the
He'd
ball,
give it to you.
he'd
Yeah,
give it to me.
right.
It's like a dad thing and it just always struck me so funny because I'm like look at this dude just ripping the ball away from his like his like son's hand.
Yeah.
The first thing he says he's like, oh, you'll get the next one, like
Right, right.
like that.
Everything he does is such bullshit. Clearly a family that grew up with soccer for some reason, you know.
Right. Yeah, like his dad chose soccer as the
Right, his
the
dad's like a
family
sock
sport.
Robert Duvall's a soccer nut. I guess the tetherball scene's a big one
Oh gosh,
too. We
yeah.
haven't talked about the tetherball scene. That's a big set piece moment. Very violent tetherball scene.
Oh, yeah.
Always made me want to play it as a kid because it was,
Right.
you know,
Just
so
when
intense.
Will Ferrell rip off his shirt and you can see all the red circles over his body where the tetherball has just like hit him so hard. You're just looking at it like, is that actually how it is hitting this tetherball back and forth? So
Right,
yes.
right.
Even
Yeah,
at
he's got
recess,
like
we'd have
he's got
tetherballs sitting
welts.
out
We
there.
didn't have tetherball. I
Oh,
wish
we
we did.
at our playgrounds, but I never went out and played it. But seeing this movie does make me wanna to try it. Made me wish I would have tried it back then, honestly.
Yeah, it's like this movie and Napoleon Dynamite
Yep.
really sell you on the tetherball, like those 2000s tetherball movies.
Yeah, we had a tetherball thing at my school, but I definitely never played it until seeing Napoleon Dynamite, and then
Right,
not
then
actually
all-
playing it. You know, just everybody tries to hit it as hard as they can around the pole. And another
Yeah.
thing, I guess we didn't mention too much. Well, we mentioned Josh Hutcherson, but that's Will Ferrell's brother in this, who's
Right.
basically Robert Duvall's.
Right.
He's got another chance at getting a star soccer
Right. I know, which is insane.
kid.
Like
you know?
It is.
I don't think we've gotten really into like we were about to like end this episode,
There's
but
all these
now I'm like
extra things.
realizing there's like a whole another dimension to this. We have
Wait.
Robert Duvall, like they really write like the worst guy. He is
Yeah, he
such, the
sucks.
fact that
terrible.
the fact that he goes as far as to like have another kid raise him because
Oh,
he's
yeah.
disappointed with his other kid as not being a star athlete, that he
Oh,
has
yeah.
another kid.
The day that his son proposes to his wife, he has a girl that he just proposed to that's like younger and
Yeah, even
and,
like younger than Will Ferrell's
yeah,
wife.
right. Who's like his son, and his sons are born on the same day, and like his son was only an ounce bigger, and he was like he's bigger, like he's just a
Right.
little
Yeah.
bigger, and it's like
Right. The guy's just living in
It's-
such a like competitive and I like this a lot. That I like the obsessive competitive nature because I
Right.
knew people like this growing up. I knew people
Definitely.
that lived to compete. I'd have friends, like I'd have a friend where when you would hang out with him, we would do nothing, but we'd like play Madden against each other. We'd play basketball against each other. We'd like play bags. Like it was just never ending, and it wasn't like we would play for fun. It was like never ending like competition, like where we
Mhm.
actually were in it. And I remember I look back on those times as a kid, and like, I mean, you're a kid, you're playing games, you're having fun, but on another level, there is like this whole idea on how that like this we grow up in these never-ending competitive cultures that are kind of damaging and
Right.
toxic and aren't really good for your growth as a kid on building self-worth. Like this movie kind of shines like a tremendous light on why sports culture in like when you grow up is bad for you as a kid. Because it's really not about having fun. It's really about trying to be good, thinking you're good, you know, like that sort of thing. You have dads who are very problematic and insecure and kind of losers in a way, coaching way too hard, taking it way more seriously, you know, putting kids on the bench who don't feel good about themselves. Like, I'm going pretty deep into it right now, but like,
Yeah.
that's like how really genuinely how it is. I think this movie kind of takes some that is real and kind of, you know, puts it to another absurd level. But that is a thing where there are Buck Westons out there, not necessarily having second sons, but are really grooming their kids. They're Buck Westons in every class, you know, where they're grooming their kid to be the athlete, and then they're going to be the coach, and they're going to coach their kid's basketball team, and their kid is the point guard, and he shoots every single time, and the whole game plan is built around it. And it's like fucking ridiculous, you know, and everyone has to deal with it, you know?
Most definitely. And I think that's something in this movie that stays true to what you were just saying was, you know, there's a lot of dads out there that like through their sons are like, oh, I can't play sports anymore, but like my sons or my daughters can play sports, like, and I will live vicariously through them and like tell them how I played and everything like that. So I saw a lot of dads growing up that were like, oh, I used to be star quarterback, you know, blah blah blah, and like now my son's the star quarterback. You know, it's like it's that vicarious living through the kids that I think this movie really entails to. He's like, my son's gonna be the best at his 12-year-old soccer league now, and I will win because he's a winner. It's like
I think Brendon, maybe we should like tell John a little bit about maybe some of our family, some things with our family, because we've had we have like a history of where we would play sports as a family, and we had an uncle who would get like very into it. And what's funny is like our uncle wasn't much of a sports guy.
Usually not, no.
Really, but I think like
not even growing up. So
no, but I think it was something maybe to do like a mix of his upbringing and the fact like that, like he wanted his kids to feel good about themselves.
I guess
our uncle we had some like actually moments where things got kind of like
got physical, man. Like it got physical and got very heated over holidays for some of these.
Where we'd be playing these games that were supposed to be for fun, but people would eventually be like taking out their like insecurities during these games, and it was kind of odd because we're not an athletic family at all.
Not especially.
Not at all. Should not care about sports in any way, but during those times, like it got like competitive and
it did.
And like so I don't know, sports brings out like things in people, I think, you know. Like
these occasions were happening even when we were kids, you know, like younger kids as well. So I mean it made it different. So and it was just weird.
Well, like, and this uncle we're kind of talking about, like, he would have those moments where he'd talk about how, like, there'd be a baseball game, and he'd be like, I prepared my kids for the game, you know, like that sort of thing, you know.
Oh yeah. Be like, they know what's going on, and like we've been training, and like we know what's happening, and those were some weird times, but it kind of brings that aspect of like how competitive some people can get and how
like how parents get way too into these their kids sporting events, you know,
and it can be more damaging than I think anything else, you know. It gets scary for like people that don't take it as competitive, because then all of a sudden when one person's taking it so competitive, it's like can be dangerous for others. So for the other people that aren't sometimes. So it's definitely weird.
I always felt bad for the kids growing up who it seemed like their parents really pushed them to. Even if it seemed at the time like they were also just as into it as their parents were. I always felt bad for the ones that it seemed like their whole life revolved around doing this sport. And it's like, you know, you're like, your parents are the ones taking all this, you know, you're not necessarily voluntarily bringing yourself to do all this. And I played tennis growing up, and there's a lot of that.
Tennis, definitely.
Fucking,
a lot of wealthy
Will Smiths of the world.
Will
you
Smith,
know?
Trying to create the next Serenas and Venus.
The Richards of the world. The Richard Williams.
the Richard Williams of the world. I remember I was in this one tennis class growing up where the dad said that your backhand is your most accurate shot. So instead of having a forehand and a backhand, he forced his daughter to have a double backhand,
Oh gosh.
meaning
Whoa.
both shots are backhands. And it's just like that's such like a fucked up thing to me to think of a dad
Right.
forcing a child to play a sport a certain way that's like not normally played that just to get like an upper hand. Basically, it just seems like he's only thinking methodically about how to prime his daughter to become a tennis star.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I think it's like if you grow up in very basic areas, which I think we kind of did. There's like not the outlets for childhood activity are so closed in. You'd think there'd be so much, that there'd be to do, but it really, I recall it being all sports and
Totally,
like all
yeah.
the
I do
time,
as well.
and I mean, I was fine with it because I liked sports and I had a lot of, energy and ADD to get out. Sports were perfect for me. But looking back on it, like the lack of things that were done, like, I don't know, into the amount of interests that you could encourage a kid to have. And then you give them probably the most mindless and actually like probably most useless one for their future is like kind of insane. Because I look back on my time with sports, especially like high school football, I'm like, wow, what a waste of time. And like all the like care and stuff that was put into sports as a kid, like how like much sports are treated as important when they are laughably not important. And
Totally.
they really don't teach you anything, really.
No. And most of the
So-
coaches growing up, they treat you like everyone in that's playing on your certain team, whether it's football or whatever, is like they act like everyone's going to go professional. Everyone's going to do this for the rest of their life. They're like, we're going to practice from right after school's over till 8 o'clock at night, every day. It's like conditioning every day. It's like, and then your team goes like 2-8, and it's like, well,
right, yeah.
But I did all this work. It's like I knew from early on that like you either know early on if it's like, am I going to be a professional or not? Probably, like I assume, and the small amount that do, it's so rare. But then as a kid, it was like later on I'm like, well, why did I do all that? Like I didn't become a professional.
It was like,
player
I don't know, you just didn't know what else to do. Like that's the thing. That's
that
like
was the
that's
key.
what you do. Like,
and all my
when
friends
I
were
got to
doing
high school,
it.
that's how I met everybody. I didn't know how I would have met anybody else.
Right.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's all romanticized. You want to make the team, and then you make the team, and you're like, well, I gotta go to practice every day for 2 hours after school and do all, and then go to games. We gotta travel. Like, why do we? Yeah, what's the?
I remember being so happy in high school when I quit sports. And like I had the 1 year, I believe it was senior year, where I didn't play a single sport. That was probably the best year. Just open schedule, like not having to deal with any sports.
Yep. Senior year was also the only year I did not play any sports.
Right.
And that was way better. Like made my life that much easier. And by then I think most of my friends had realized that sports were not like for them in high school. So we all just not to do it.
Yeah, I still remember like the football team, like they were kind of short on players, I think 1 year. And so they were going out to all these people who were like played the freshman, sophomore year and who didn't play as much, basically trying to get us to join the team to fill up the bench. And I remember luckily like me and like a bunch of them like had the self-respect to be like, no, you guys just want us to play because you don't have a bench this year. And you guys just want us to fill up your bench. Like, fuck you. Like, this is not, like, we don't have to say fuck you. I guess I'm being a little harsh there, but, but we don't have to deal with 2 to 3 a day practices, go to a camp, like get dehydrated for a whole summer. like doing all those unreasonable football drills where they're literally killing you all for like nothing for us. You know what I
it
mean?
was a
There's
lot,
not like to realize there's nothing in it for us. Like I actually like look back on that and go like, oh, good for us for like turning down not playing
yeah.
football.
Yeah.
You know.
My high school had a bad way of going about it that was much harder. To quit the football team, fun fact, you had to meet with the head coach one-on-one and tell him face-to-face that you weren't quitting or that you were quitting. So
You're gonna
everyone
look
had
me.
one-on-one.
You're gonna look me
Like
right
you're gonna look me
Be a
right in the
man.
face
Yeah.
and tell me that I'm not playing. So I was pretty proud of myself the day, I think in like sophomore, junior year, that I went in the office and I'm just like, no, I'm not doing it. Like not doing it, you know. But as a kid, like you think like, oh, it's so terrifying to tell my coach like I'm not gonna play anymore.
The
you
coaches
know?
are so scary.
They're so scary, you know, and it's like, oh my god. But then after I said it, he was just like, all right, Brendan, that's okay. And I was like, this was not as scary as I thought, you know. I'm like, this is not as terrifying. So
but yeah, like this was a good thread. I figured we'd have like,
oh yeah,
I don't know, get to like, because when we talked about Accepted, I remember we talked a lot about our own like
own
applying
family.
to college and how crazy it was. So I feel like this is like a similar line of that, you know, just kind of like the absurdities of growing up in suburbia, you know. It's like
the absurdities.
You know, college and sports are like kind of similar levels of absurdity to me.
Yeah. All ties in together.
So yeah, I don't know if we have anything left to say about Kicking and Screaming. I feel like we've done it.
I feel like we dug into it pretty well.
For the most part, I mean, I guess we can. Robert Duvall does kick a kid in the pool at the end.
He does.
When Will Ferrell pushes a kid, Robert Duvall
so.
kicks a kid into the pool.
No
and
parents
that's supposed
say
to be
anything.
funny
So.
too. Yeah, no parents say anything.
Because
it's supposed to be like, I think because it's supposed to be the weird kid, you know?
Right? Yeah. Like,
it's okay to push in.
Right? They're like, he should get pushed in the pool.
And then like basically the movie ends and they both have put their like businesses together, where Buck Weston owns the sporting goods stores and Phil Weston owns the vitamin store. So now they are working together instead of Phil closing his business and working for his dad.
I forgot about the Robert Duvall like infomercials too.
Right.
Infomercials, commercials.
I got balls. Another very like cheap like
juvenile.
He's got balls.
Right.
And vitamins. It really ends. I'm like, when that like commercial played and Brendan, we like finished the movie. I remember being like, wow, this is what I watched.
Yeah, wow. I was like, man, this is great.
We got balls.
We got balls.
And vitamins.
Oh, it's great.
Okay,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's
just,
trying to be funny.
Right. It was just like, it was an amateurish way to try to be funny at the end with the.
I'm the prince of vitamins.
Right.
But yeah, that's Kicking and Screaming, guys. Everyone begged for it, so we gave it to them.
Giving the people what they want.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. That was. I hope that ends everyone had a great summer, and that ends your summer well, being able to reminisce on childhood soccer days, and because that's what Will Ferrell and the crew made it for. Yeah, Brendan, thanks for coming back.
Of course. I really appreciate it.
I love it. I love this like trio. I think we've had some good episodes together. Kind of some of my favorites. So I love having you on.
Yeah, guys, appreciate you guys having me on. I love this collab. Love being here for good movies that we watched in our childhood and whatnot. And yeah, lots of good movies still to come this year. So it's gonna be a good year.
Yeah, and your Criterion thing is definitely legendary. It's a legendary splurge.
I appreciate you letting me talk about my splurge on the podcast. I think it was definitely noteworthy. I don't know how I'll top myself next July. We'll have to see.
Yeah,
so.
So that's cool to note on, and like we'll make sure to in the edit try to like put in your your comic thing to try to plug that
Yeah.
for you. To
Love the
get
comic
that,
stuff. Keep it
help you out
rolling.
with that.
And yeah, I love being here with
Maybe
you
the
guys.
next time you have on will be Christmas, because I remember
Oh
like
man,
last time we
my
had
Christmas
you on,
watches
we like
are
talked
big.
about Jingle All the Way, and I think we talked about
Yeah.
other like ridiculous Christmas movies. I know you're like
Oh, yeah.
a
I'm a-
Christmas movie guy.
I'm a
so
big
maybe
Christmas
in-
movie guy. I do a list every year for Letterboxd. I think my list last year had like 40 or 50, so we were pretty high on
Right.
watching the
So
Christmas.
yeah, maybe during the holidays you'll come back and
Always
we'll
love
talk
to.
Christmas movies. For
That
sure.
sounds amazing. Looking forward to it. Appreciate it.
All right, so yeah, follow us on Instagram. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Again, if you came from the Misfit Pond, I hope you are liking our content. We'll be back soon with some more stuff. I think Jake, our producer, is doing an episode about Babe Pig in the City next
Awesome.
month.
I can't wait.
So actually, that's a
Classic.
very interesting one. I actually would look forward to listening to that for myself. So yeah, that's a wrap on this one.